Over a dozen have been arrested in a crackdown on what investigators say is an organized crime syndicate trafficking drugs from Mexico through Los Angeles.
12 drones lifted off from a staging area, marking the start of a deep strike that would change everything we know about modern warfare. While that was happening, federal agents were smashing through the doors of a Russian compound to seize $47 million and a mountain of weapons.
Just take a look at the heavy weaponry that was recently seized by CBP and ATF. Just on one table is over 40 AK-47s and loads of ammunition that were seized in just a single incident.
So, here's the deal. These two events are not a coincidence. The 89 people arrested are just the tip of the iceberg in a story involving plastic decoys, billion-dollar radar traps, and secret missiles that were never supposed to be found by anyone. Advanced decoy operations. At 603 hours local time, 12 Ukrainian drones lifted off from a staging area in the Sumy Oblast. Their target was the 100th Gral arsenal located near a major facility, situated 578 miles to the northeast. This was the deepest strike ever attempted against a Russian ammunition depot, and for it to work, a very specific trick had to succeed first. A Russian radar operator in the Bryansk Blast region noticed the first contacts at 621 hours. These were faint returns at the edge of his coverage, but they sharpened quickly as they pushed east toward the heart of the country. He counted 12 signatures, maybe 13, and each one painted a radar cross-section that was perfectly consistent with a cruise missile. That is the kind of return that gets your attention at 6 o'clock in the morning, hands down. He flagged the tracks and forwarded the data up the chain of command immediately. Only 3 minutes later, the information landed on the scope of a Buck M2 Battery Commander 40, 3 miles to the north. This man was about to spend nearly $5 million in missiles just to shoot down $33,000 worth of plastic and foam. He studied the contacts on his display, seeing 12 confirmed tracks pushing northeast at 100 miles per hour. Their altitude was steady between 1,900 and 2,900 feet, following the terrain in a disciplined profile. The signatures were substantial, suggesting each object weighed between 880 and 1,100 pounds based on the radar returns. The current range was 36 miles, and at their present speed, they would enter his 31-mile engagement envelope in approximately 4 minutes. This is a key detail because that is where the trap snapped shut. His buck system carried 4 ready rounds on the rails, and the math was simple but brutal. He had 4 missiles but 12 contacts, and the reload time was 6 to 8 minutes. Basically, he had 1 magazine to stop a swarm that outnumbered his ammunition 3 to 1. The contacts were doing anything except flying in a straight line, which made him think they could be cruise missiles or a new system he had never seen. Nobody gets promoted for letting missiles through while asking questions, so he made the call any commander would make. At 627 hours, he ordered the first launch. 2 missiles roared off the rails, accelerating to 3 times the speed of sound as they climbed toward the intercept point. The fire control radar held a lock on the lead contacts, feeding guidance as the missiles closed at nearly 1 kilometer per second. 38 seconds to intercept. The first warhead detonated at 628 hours, creating a flash over the forest as 12,000 steel fragments tore through an 18-pound plastic decoy. The radar return vanished, and the commander logged a successful intercept. He had no idea he just spent enough money to buy a luxury apartment, destroying something that costs less than a bicycle. He ordered the second launch 3 minutes later. 2 more missiles, 2 more intercepts, and 2 more contacts vanished. His system was now empty, having expended 4 ready rounds in 4 minutes. The transloader vehicle pulled alongside to begin the reload, with hydraulics whining as the missiles shifted. He needed 6 minutes minimum before he could fire again, but the remaining 8 contacts would cross his position in 5. He reported the engagement up the chain, proud of his 100% hit rate, but he didn't realize he had just been played. Something strange was moving through the gaps in the air defense network while the fighters were distracted. Defense network blackout. The remaining 8 contacts crossed the first battery's position at 636 hours. 37 miles to the east, a Tor M2 battery picked up the swarm. The Tor is a short-range point defense system designed to swat cruise missiles out of the sky at ranges up to 7 miles. Against actual missiles, it is genuinely dangerous, but against decoys flying deliberately outside its reach, it was about as useful as a guard dog behind a fence. The battery commander studied the tracks, which were bearing 243 degrees at a range of 19 miles. But here's the catch. The contacts weren't heading toward him. They were heading north, angling to pass 11 miles outside his engagement zone. He couldn't reach them from his current spot. The commander considered moving his unit, but the wheeled chassis could only cover 25 miles per hour on those roads. By the time he moved, the contacts would be long gone. He tracked them passively and reported what he was seeing. At 638 hours, a larger S-300 battery 75 miles east began tracking the swarm. This system is built for high-altitude threats, like aircraft at 60,000 feet or ballistic missiles. Its missiles can reach 93 miles, which is far enough to engage the contacts from there. But the system's radar was built for targets high in the sky, not cruise missiles hugging the Earth at 2,600 feet. The fire control solution flickered on the commander's display as the lock was lost and then degraded. He could launch on a partial solution and hope the missiles found the targets, but at $2 million per missile, that was an expensive gamble on bad odds. At 639 hours, the first battery in Brian's blast finished reloading. 4 fresh missiles were on the rails, but the geometry was garbage. The contacts were now 50 miles away and heading away from him. A stern chase at that range would push his missiles to their limits, leaving almost no fuel for maneuvering. He reported his status and awaited orders, knowing that someone above his pay grade was going to have to make a big decision. The Coordination Center's display showed the whole picture. 1 battery with missiles but no targets, 1 battery that couldn't reach, and 1 battery with a bad lock. 8 tracks were pushing deeper into the country at 100 miles per hour, threading through the gaps. The report landed on the desk of the regional air defense officer at 640 hours. He had 2 options. He could order the batteries to fire with bad odds, costing up to $12 million with a low chance of success, or he could scramble fighters. Scrambling 2 Su-35 fighters would take 20 minutes, but each plane carried 8 missiles. The only drawback was that the moment those fighters entered the zone, every ground battery would have to stand down to prevent friendly fire. The officer checked the clock and made his choice. At 641 hours, the scramble order went out. 2 fighters were in the air within 3 minutes, pushing northeast at 930 miles per hour. Their pilots received the data for 8 contacts at 2,600 feet. The automated instruction hit the network at 649 hours, weapons hold for all sectors. Targeting radars went silent across the entire region. The airspace belonged to the fighters now. At 658 hours, the jets made radar contact. They descended and began taking out the targets one by one. By 713 hours, the flight lead reported the zone was clear. 8 contacts were destroyed and the threat was considered neutralized. The fighters turned back to RARM and the ground batteries came back online, sweeping empty skies. The officer logged it as a success, never realizing the objects were just plastic and foam drones equipped with something called a Lundberg lens. This lens is a sphere that captures radar waves and focuses them like a mirror, reflecting nearly all the energy back to the source. It made a 20-pound drone look 15 times larger than it actually was. The operators had no way to tell the difference, and while they were busy hunting decoys, the real threat was moving silently below them. While the sky was filled with expensive missiles hitting plastic, the real attack was just getting started. Precision terrain matching. 40 miles south of the engagement zone, flying at only 650 feet, 9 Ludi drones had spent the last 24 minutes threading through the silent airspace. Every ground battery was offline, and every fighter was focused nearly 2,000 feet above them. They still had 460 miles to go. These drones pushed northeast at a very low altitude, their terrain following systems keeping them just above the tree line. The gap in the defenses had bought them some time, but over 500 miles of hostile airspace still remained. At 847 hours, the first Ludi encountered a problem. It was threading between two radar zones when its navigation system hit a snag. The terrain below didn't match the satellite maps in its memory because a local reservoir had risen 10 feet since the pictures were taken. The flight computer tried to fix the mismatch by searching for landmarks it could recognize. It eventually found a road junction a mile away and corrected its course, but the 47-second delay pushed the drone directly into the path of a defense battery. The crew there had 8 seconds to react, and they only needed 4. At 903 hours, a second drone had an engine failure. Its motor had been running at high power for 3 hours, and the heat was rising past the limits. Fuel consumption jumped by 12%, and the math was brutal. The drone would run out of gas 25 miles short of the target. It glided for 90 seconds before crashing into an empty field. At 1,031 hours, a third drone flew too close to a mobile battery guarding a military convoy. With no weapons hold in place, the commander launched 2 missiles and took the drone down. Now, only 6 drones remained. The planners had expected 40% losses, and they were currently at 33% with over 300 miles left to go. The survivors pushed on, adjusting their path to avoid the spots that had just revealed themselves. They were using a system called Skynode, which is what made these drones different. Most long-range strikes rely on GPS, which can be jammed or faked by electronic warfare units. But Skynode ignores satellites entirely. It works by comparing what its camera sees to high-resolution maps loaded before the flight. There is no signal to jam and no data link to intercept. It just matches shapes to shapes at 100 miles per hour. The system wasn't perfect, as snow or new buildings could throw it off, but it was good enough. The 6 remaining drones crossed into the final sector at 1,423 hours. They were still flying at 65 feet, running completely dark. The 100th Graal arsenal was only 7 miles ahead. This facility covered nearly 500 acres of forest and was filled with bunkers, warehouses, and rail lines. The drone's cameras captured the target for the first time, showing trucks moving and forklifts loading pallets. On a rail siding, there were 4 flat cars carrying crates that didn't look like anything in the local inventory. The markings weren't even in the local language. Whatever was stored there had come from very far away. The drones were closing in on a secret that was never supposed to be out in the open. Strategic strike success. The defense battery protecting the arsenal spotted the first contact at 1,427 hours. The operator saw one track moving fast at a range of 11 miles. Then a second appeared from a different angle, and then a third. The drones weren't flying together, they were coming from 3 different directions at once. He had one system with 2 guns and 3 targets closing in. The system can track multiple things, and its twin 30mm cannons can fire 5,000 rounds per minute. Against one drone it is easy, but against 3 from different sides, the math gets messy. The guns can only point one way at a time, and moving from one target to another takes 2 seconds. Getting a lock takes another 1.5 seconds, and you need 3 seconds of fire to be sure it is destroyed. That is a total of 6.5 seconds per target. At 100 miles per hour, a drone covers nearly 1,000 feet in that time. The operator picked the closest threat and started firing. The first drone came apart at 4 miles out. He immediately moved to the second target, which was now less than 4 miles away. He took that one down too, but the third drone was already inside 2 miles. Just as he moved to engage, 3 more drones appeared on his screen coming from the north. This northern group had timed it perfectly. While the operator was busy with the first 3, these drones had looped around a forest ridge to hide their approach. By the time he cleared the third target and looked north, the second wave was less than 5 miles away. He had 6 seconds to hit the closest one, but the others would cover 2 miles in that time. He hit the third drone at just over a mile away, and although it was damaged, it kept flying. At 1430 hours, the first drone struck a storage bunker. Its 165-pound warhead punched through the concrete roof. For a second, nothing happened, and then the whole building erupted as artillery shells started cooking off. Who really funded the secret shipments found in the compound, and could this happen in your own backyard? Tell us what you think in the comments, like this video, and subscribe for more deep dives.